Good to have Buddy Whittington with us this morning, isn't it? Yeah. So we started the series last week to talk about hope, and I hope you're doing well with your New Year's resolutions, better than me. This is week 2. I figured this is where it either all comes together or it all falls apart, right? It's kind of easy to create a new kind of direction for your life when you're on the holiday kind of spree time, but then back to normal life, back to every day, and pretty soon you find yourself discovering that life is full of rituals that you just kind of do automatically, and changing the rituals will be a little more challenging than we might have thought. How many of you have found that to be true so far this year? Yes. So my experience, maybe like your experience, is that it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, do I just kind of give in that I'm not going to make this happen this year? Or do I find some other energy, some other kind of path that's going to somehow give me what it takes to make it happen for me? And so whether you're trying to lose 10 pounds or do something to change the world, wherever your kind of hope for the new year may lie, I want to suggest to you that it's not too late, even if you find yourself having kind of fallen off the wagon. What you need is hope. I'm not saying that just because I think that's a really cool thing, because frankly, we talked about last week that plenty of times hope is something that we ought to give up. There are times where we have hope in things that are never going to work. We're never going to get there. It's kind of like driving around that parking lot waiting for God to open up the parking space. Keep praying, sure. But maybe we ought to begin to think about, what is it that our bigger hopes are? What is it that we want our life to be about? If you're not raising your vision up high enough, then the hopes won't be big enough either. We need high hopes. And it's not just the Bible that suggests that, like in the passage that we read today where Jesus says, if you knock, the door is going to be open to you. It's not just spiritual teachers, all traditions, all religions, who seem to be partly about bringing out and encouraging hope in their followers. Psychology, too, has come to discover that there are some things about hope that are important. For instance, whether you're looking at what it takes to accomplish your goals from a sense of, I've got certain skills and IQ and all that kind of stuff, or whether I have opportunity because I got it given to me, which is important, one of the things that they're finding is even more important than those is what they're defining as hope. Back in 2011, there was an article in Psychology Today covering a whole bunch of research on hope. There are people who have actually taken that term and tried to break it down and say, what is hope? And it seems to be about kind of two different things. On the one side, it's about a sense of positive thinking about where I'm going. There's a sense of, I can do it. And on the other hand, there's a sense of applying oneself to the doing and having paths, being able to come up with paths to get there. There's even a guy named Charles Stanley who came up with just a little 12-question hope scale to find out whether you are a hopeful person or not. Guess what they found out? They found out that students who had hope, it was predictive of success, much more than those who didn't. They also found that it was a better predictor of law school GPAs than the LSAT. That's fascinating, isn't it? Whether you have a sense that you can do that which you are dreaming about doing and are actively working on finding and problem solving and holding yourself accountable to the process is more important to you getting where you need to go than what you've learned in the past, how much resources you have internally, self-esteem, self-efficacy, all of those things. How you feel about your capacity to accomplish that which you dream. Now, it makes sense to me because I know in those times in my life where I have felt utterly hopeless, when I didn't seem to think that there was any possibility of getting anywhere. Isn't it interesting in those times of our life how easy it is to stop thinking of different ways to get there? You stop utilizing the resources that you have to apply yourself to finding those different divergent paths that might get you to the place that you believe you are called to be or that your longing leads you toward. It's easy to kind of fall into a sense of, I have hope, but I am hopeless about getting there. And to be overwhelmed with that hopelessness is to kind of lose your capacity both for the vehicle that might get you there and the kind of thinking that allows you to move in that direction. I've always said, at least I haven't always said anything. Never mind. I've never said that. So let me say something new. Something new would be, it seems to me that whenever I am like in the process of trying to accomplish something, I find myself sometimes really easily into a place of giving up when it doesn't happen quickly. I think it has to do with kind of the emotional capacity that I have for staying committed to something. It's easy for us to kind of have these little scripts that say, if it doesn't hit, if I don't find success quickly, then it's not going to happen. We learn these things from the time we're young. Many of you in here are parents. And, if your experience is like my experience, you may have found that your children from time to time would try out different things like dance or clarinet or guitar or something. And have you ever had the experience where they tried it out for about 2 days and went, nope, not going to happen? Or you paid for the lessons and they got 2 lessons in and they went, not for me. I think that's because, there's a dream in my heart, maybe, to be a rock star. But learning how to play guitar is different than having a dream to be a rock star. It's a moment, day to day, hour by hour commitment. I love Malcolm Gladwell and some of his books. I know some of you read some of his books like Blink and Tipping Point and all of those. He talks about, in the book Outliers, he talks about what does it take for people to have really extraordinary success, where they just are like really the best at what they do. And he looks in the field of music, and he looks in the field of all these other things like hockey and stuff. And you may already know what he found out. He found that in what they all had in common, these people who had been super successful in their fields, was basically 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours of doing that. The Beatles, Steve Jobs, didn't matter who he looked at. In every case, it was about 10,000 hours of practicing, performing, doing what it was that they eventually became kind of the genius at. He didn't discover that that IQ was correlated to that. It didn't necessarily mean that you had to have a high IQ. In fact, the research suggests that people with really high IQs, on average, don't really do that well in their lives in terms of success or the things we sometimes measure as success. Maybe what we all could recognize in our own lives is it's having that sense, that clear sense that I can do this. I can make a difference. I can accomplish. To have that belief, to hold it, to do whatever it takes to reinforce that again and again in our hearts, as long as we have a way to get there. Beating your head against the wall, believing you're going to be a rock star, and not picking up a guitar or a microphone, not taking a voice lesson, believing that you're going to be climbing Mount Everest in a year, but you're not practicing any kind of physical prowess. That's a pipe dream. And that's not a hope, that's a fantasy. And the thing that makes, as James Kavanaugh pointed out in his book Search, the thing that makes a difference between an option and a fantasy is, what are you doing right now? What can you do today? You want to climb Mount Everest? Go get a book on climbing mountains today. Go for a good walk. Maybe get on one of those stair climber things. I don't know. Whatever it takes for you to begin on that path today. If you can do that today, if you can begin that process today, then you're living in hope, not fantasy. You know, when in the passage that we read, Jesus talks about knock and the door will be open, I kind of like the metaphor. It doesn't say stand outside the door and just look at the door and imagine what's in there. You have to do something active. You want to be recognizing you can create. You can create the positive future, see the positive future, and daily move toward it. We have a lot of struggles in our world. We have a lot of struggles in our community right around here. You know? Right in this community, right here in this room, there are a lot of folks trying to make the best out of some bad cards that they got dealt. And maybe add a little bit to your sense of hope this morning, that you might have a little hope that our community might become one that's a little more caring, a little more healing, that maybe even you have the capacity within you, no matter how broken things are for you, to live out something daily that can make a difference. It's easy to give up hope. The world's full of messages that say, hey, it's bad. Just cover up and get the wagons in a circle. But that's not the world that we want to live in. That's why we're here. That's why we're here in this circle. Because we have a hope that the people around this circle, like us, want to see the world become something a little different, something a little sweeter, something a little more caring, and something a little more whole. Amen.